Hi, everyone. I am CNBC reporter Kate Rogers, and I'm so excited to have you all with me here today for this virtual event. 2020 has been a very challenging year, as we all know, the global pandemic really exacerbating so many of the issues that small business owners are facing around the country, particularly entrepreneurs of color, women entrepreneurs, and also small business owners that are based in rural parts of the country. Over half of small business owners say that they are reporting decreased revenue and other negative impacts that are tied to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we begin to rebuild in a post-COVID-19 world, we all know that small and new businesses are really going to lead the way with creating new jobs and also helping the economy grow for all of us. But what can we do now to make sure that small business owners really have the resources that they need to move forward and prosper? Well, at CNBC, we do have a financial wellness and education initiative that's called Invest in You, Ready, Set, Grow. And we've partnered with Acorns, which is the micro investing app, to help make Americans smarter about how they save, spend, and invest their money. Today, we're partnering with the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, which believes that all people, regardless of their race, gender, or geography, should have the opportunity to pursue prosperity. We're going to hear directly today from small and new business owners and hopefully provide them the answers that they and that you watching need in order to move ahead and help your business grow after this challenging time. Kauffman Foundation's Vice President of Entrepreneurship, Philip Gaskin, is here today. Philip, we are so excited to have you here. We know you have a few words to share with the small business community, so please take it away.
Hey, thank you. Yes, and it's our pleasure to work with CNBC and support this conversation today. And what an important time to be hearing from entrepreneurs. We know there's an overwhelming majority of Americans that believe that the economic system just unfairly benefits the powerful. And we've seen the devastating effects of COVID-19 and a series of racial injustices that have exposed many other systems and practices that are just broken and flawed. So as you mentioned at Kauffman Foundation, we believe that anyone, all people, regardless of race, gender, geography, have the opportunity to share in that American prosperity, and that there's an entrepreneurial economy where there's a level playing field that doesn't leave out women entrepreneurs, doesn't leave out rural entrepreneurs, and does not limit Black and brown entrepreneurs. So I'm looking forward to the discussion today, especially hearing from small business owners and entrepreneurs. So thank you.
Philip, we are very much looking forward to it as well. And thank you for joining us. I'm going to introduce the rest of our rockstar panel here today. We'll start with Melissa Bradley, who's the founder of 1863 Ventures, co-founder of Eureka, and works to provide economic opportunities for diverse small business owners. Melissa is also professor of impact investing, social entrepreneurship, P2P economies, and innovation at the McDougal School of Business at Georgetown. Melissa, thank you for your time and for being here today. Lizetta Braxton, a certified financial planner and co-founder and partner of financial services company 2050 Wealth Partners. She is a member of the CNBC Financial Advisor Council, also serves as chair of the board of the Association of African American Financial Advisors. Lizetta, thank you for being here today. Brad Feld is an early stage investor and entrepreneur for over 30 years. He's the co-founder of the Founder Group and Techstars, and also blogs at Feld Thoughts and Venture Deals. Brad, thank you for joining us. And Bobby Brown is CEO and founder of Beauty Evolution and Evolution 18, a world-renowned makeup artist, creator of her own beauty brand, and best-selling author. Bobby, thank you, and thanks to the rest of the panel for being here. We're really excited. We're going to get started now with questions. We have 43 states, 14 different countries joining us today. New and small business owners from all over the world really sent in their questions ahead of this event. These questions are timely and thoughtful, and we look forward to answering them and giving you some actionable advice to get through these challenging times. So first off, we're going to start with Chassity Jackson. Chassity's from Florida, but she is joining us from the Pentagon today, where she's attending a retirement ceremony. Chassity served in the U.S. Air Force. She established Battle Beauties Fashion in 2015. That's a unique fashion community for curvy military women. And today she's got a question for Bobby about online business. Chassity, first, for your service, and please go ahead.
Good afternoon to all the panel, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this opportunity. And Bobby, thank you for all that you do through the pretty and powerful campaigns to empower women. So my question to you, Bobby, is what strategies can veteran entrepreneurs deploy to posture their virtual retail businesses to move the needle forward during times of uncertainty and beyond?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is how do more people know about your business. And you can use social media, you can use Instagram Live, you could use Facebook, but how could you meet other like-minded people that could tell your story, that could help you get your products in front of more people. I mean, certainly you're a role model for what you've done, and you're an entrepreneur. So you've got to just get scrappy, and you've got to just reach out and do it, and just get out there and tell your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you both. And Bobby, thanks for that great answer. Next up, we have John Mertz from New Mexico. John is with Santa Fe Innovates, which is a business accelerator focused on social good. John, what's your question today?
Yes, thank you. We had to adapt but open our new startup accelerator with 7 entrepreneurs. It seems that entrepreneurs can lead our economic recovery. So why isn't there more focus on enabling entrepreneurs now? And what programs are needed to empower new entrepreneurs?
Brad, between Foundry Group and Techstars, a ton of resources for new and early stage entrepreneurs. So we're going to ask you to start us off here.
Yeah, thanks, John. The thing you're doing is actually a big part of the phenomena, I think, that's going on across the U.S. While there isn't as much focus necessarily from the top down, from federal or state government specifically on entrepreneurs, there's an enormous amount of activity by entrepreneurs for other entrepreneurs, building things like startup communities in different states around the country. Just the phenomena of accelerators would be a good example that I think is going to be incredibly amplified coming out of the global financial crisis. One of the things that I talked about recently in my newest book, The Startup Community Way, is the dynamic of how startup communities all over the US and all over the world grow from bottom-up phenomena rather than top-down controlled and organized phenomena. So I just encourage all the entrepreneurs out there to engage with each other, specifically look towards things that are happening in different states. Colorado, where I live, is a great example of it, where you've got a bunch of for-profit activities like Techstars, but also a lot of nonprofit activities like Startup Colorado, which helps rural entrepreneurs across the state, and Energize Colorado, which is focused on any business with less than 500 employees grow and develop across the state. So these kinds of focal points are ones that happen in a network model rather than one that's dictated top down.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. We're going to head over to Idaho now, where Claire Honsinger founded The Good Horse, which offers equine-assisted learning sessions as a path for positive human development. Claire, what's your question today?
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Kate. Thank you to the panel. And I also want to extend a special thank you to my mother-in-law, Meg Mishazik, who is watching and has been a huge supporter of my business from the beginning. 2020 has been a hard year for all of us. I was poised this year to turn a profit for the first time since incorporating as an LLC in 2017. I had to shut down for COVID. I was ready to deploy my COVID strategy, and then I got a concussion in May. And it's been 18 weeks and I'm still functionally disabled and can't see my clients. I'm struggling to keep my business existing, let alone serving people. What can I do to not have to close completely? If I have to go away, if my business shutters, it's an hour until anybody that I would serve would be able to get to access. Sorry, my brain's shorting out. But they would have to drive a long way to get services. There's no one else here. It's rural North Idaho. What can I do? What resources are available for me? Thank you.
Claire, thank you. So sorry to hear of those challenges. We appreciate you participating today. Melissa, I'm going to turn this question over to you.
My kids ride, we have horses. And for Claire, I would say, it sounds like you have an amazing community around you. I would certainly do an outreach, an email, or even social media, but an email to past customers, say, if you can pay, I know we're not meeting, but pay, and have some kind of prepay program. That's what our trainer did. The other thing is, we may not be able to see the horses, but kids, particularly the kids you're working with, love horses. If you got a cell phone and somebody can do a video or do some online Zooms of exercises, maintaining point if you're a horse rider is a significant thing. But think about how you can still engage with them, because this is important not just for your business, but also for the young people that you're helping. Thank you, Kate.
Philip, also, we would like to hear your take on this one.
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. And, I wish I had a magic wand. I mean, it's painful for individuals and communities right now. So thank you so much for sharing. One thing I'll just leave you with is you're brilliant. You started a business. You did the hard thing already. You appreciate yourself for that and know that you have it in you. And and banding together with community. And I know there's some isolation there that you mentioned, but I would recommend social media. And back to my community organizer days, is use the 5 rule. It's like, are there 5 people that you can ask that you know, and ask them to tell 5 people about your business, and ask them to tell 5 people about your business, and watch that grow. And so build a community in ways that where you have some resources, do those through social media, but don't give up and understand just how brilliant you are and the result that you have.
There, Philip, thank you so much. And Melissa, thank you for your answer to her as well. We're going to move on to Soner Hagi from California. He is the CEO and co-founder of Bead. Bead creates digital models of buildings to help owners reduce energy waste and inefficiencies. Soner, thanks for being here, and please go ahead.
Thank you for having us. And my question will be, where will you have invested if you know that such a pandemic will start 3 months before it started, but other than vaccine or COVID-related issues? Thank you very much.
Great. Lizetta, we have you as our CFP on the panel today. Why don't you take this one?
Certainly. If we had the opportunity to look in the rear view mirror and make decisions 3 months ago, I think we all would probably be in a better place. And I know what you're asking in terms of that question. But since, we don't have that benefit, what's key is really thinking about industries and products and services that you enjoy. And when you think about those products, services, industries, then you can see how they can pivot in strong economies, in weaker economies, and even in a situation of pandemics. Let me give you a quick example. Our firm is 100% virtual. It was virtual before the pandemic happened. We use Zoom on our platform. Had we known that we were that far ahead, we may have invested in Zoom earlier. That was one stock. It's like, wow, why didn't we think about that? And we were actually earlier pioneers in that space. Another concept you can think about as well too, my nephew is a big gamer, right? Gaming has always been around. It's even more interesting now because of the pandemic. So my point being, don't worry about looking in the rear view mirror. Think about the firms that you enjoy, the products and services that you enjoy, that you will follow, such that you have a good idea of whether they can withstand certain changes in the economy.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I think we want to get Brad's input here too.
Yeah, I would just echo, look forward rather than backwards. I like the essence of the question, which is what would you anticipate? One of the practical exercises I think entrepreneurs can use today is to time travel to 2025. Imagine what you think the world looks like now that we've had 6 months of living in this work environment globally that's virtual. And while there's lots of things that will change, one of the biggest opportunities whenever there's a massive dislocation, both economic and structural like we've had, is that many incumbent businesses, many businesses that have lots and lots of resistance to change, all of a sudden are either forced to change or are made obsolete in a lot of ways by startups and new companies. And a great example of that in this moment is telemedicine and the phenomena that happened where telemedicine technology has been around for 10 years, but there are a whole series of incumbents, including all the different pieces of the healthcare system that really resisted using telemedicine. And in 4 weeks, telemedicine made 10 years of progress. Look for other opportunities like that in the domains that you're interested in. Try to time travel forward 5 years and then work backwards specifically and say, all right, if 5 years from now it's going to look like this, what can we do today to disrupt incumbents in a meaningful way?
Great. Thank you, Brad. We're going to move on to Marylou Garcia, also in California. She works with Expense Reduction Analysts, which is a global expense management firm that delivers incremental cash and profits to business owners. Philip, her question is for you. Marylou, please go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Yes, Kate, as you said, we work with business owners to provide the much needed cash at no upfront cost. And this year, cash is, especially cash is queen. What we found is there are many funds that have announced their commitment to invest in founders of color and women entrepreneurs. Yet we find that access to these funds is not so easy. It's somewhat difficult. So my question to you is, Philip, is, how can we hold these institutional investors to get the funds that they invest in accountable for their diversity and inclusion goals? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, but and diversity certainly matters in investment portfolios because we believe it's correlated to better performance and reduce risk. And I've I say that diversity and inclusion doesn't come to you. You have to go out and work for it. You have to bring it in. You have to identify. So I believe institutional investors should take a proactive approach at identifying, evaluating, and tracking firms that are founded by women and people of color, take an active role in that. And they also need to include questions about diversity and inclusion as a part of their initial due diligence. And questions that they can focus on recruiting, team building approaches. How much time do they devote to committing to diversity? Following up with women and diverse employees who have actually left the organization. Why did they leave the organization? Understand just what were the conditions that they had within their own investing firm that were producing the wrong type of practices. So, and one other thing is just offering internships and real world learning experiences for a much more diverse population of students that are entering into the market. So we're talking about systems change here. This is a financial investing systems change. It's big. One or two actions are not going to fix it. And we have to keep the pressure on for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you both. We're going to move over to Ginger Jones, joining us now from Colorado, where she runs online enterprise solution company Web Punch. And Bobby, her question is for you. Please go ahead, Ginger. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Bobby. So nice to meet you. I have a question for you. Historically, our company has generated new business by going to conferences and in-person meetings. But with the ban on travel and the ban on, large group gatherings, how do you break through the digital kind of madness that's going on right now and get to the right decision maker?
As an entrepreneur, I always look for the positive in every situation. The positive of not travel is saving money and time. You have so much more time on your hands right now. Think of what you can be doing and how you can connect with people. I've spent a lot of my free time and I schedule one-on-one calls with people when I walk in the morning. So I get my exercise and I have a business call. I've talked to people that I haven't known before that someone has reached out. So use your phone, use your Instagram, DM people, figure out who you would like to possibly have a conversation with. People are a little bit more ready right now to have these conversations. There's many of us entrepreneurs that have been helping other small businesses. We have more time in our hands. We're busy, but use what you have. Being an entrepreneur is seeing the opportunity. Don't be afraid to ask and use the time wisely and be grateful that you have the time and that now you have more money because you're not traveling. So be creative and start reaching out.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you both. Next, we're going to move over to Eze Redwood with Lily and James Creative in Kansas City, Missouri. The company works to create virtual marketing departments to service companies who may not have the resources to access top-tier marketing talent. Eze, what is your question? And thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having us and fostering this conversation with entrepreneurs and small business owners and startups. My question is that the crisis that came with the pandemic was the first time that many Main Street and minority entrepreneurs felt like their local governments actually cared about them. So how do we as entrepreneurs get continued support and attention once the virus goes away? And how do we get local governments to care about us as entrepreneurs when they'll be facing critical budget deficits?
Great. We are going to go to Melissa on this one. Melissa, how do you think entrepreneurs and their local governments can work together to support their communities?
It's a great question. I think first we have to recognize that I don't know a single city that has been not impacted by this. So think about how are you going to demonstrate your impact and value, because everything for them is going to be about opportunity costs. Here in DC, I'll use this as a proxy. One is get in front of your legislators, not just when it's in a time of crisis, but make sure that you have materials you can leave behind that really succinctly one page talk about your impact, who your customers are, because they're very much constituency driven. The second thing is think about task force. Here in DC, I know in places in New York. There have been local or ward or borough task force that have been set up. Find somebody who's on them, invite yourself to join. I do believe that this is a time where legislators want to be in touch with entrepreneurs. The other thing that I have to say is find best practice. Look at what other cities have done. Oftentimes their peer group is probably the greatest influencer. So what has New Orleans done? What has Oakland done? What have similar communities done? And tee that up for them. Everything has to be prepackaged. And dare I say, the final thing is you have to vote. But I think that you will find lots of legislators who are open to listening. The challenge is many of their proverbial cats in the hats in the bag, cat in the hat, like tax credits or those kind of things. If they're operating a deficit, those are not going to be readily available. But I'd say don't give up.
And thank you for being so passionate about giving good advice to these entrepreneurs who took the time out to join us today. We appreciate it. We're going to move over to North Carolina to Faye Harwood, who works with Forward Cities, which strives to build more inclusive entrepreneurial economics in over 24 cities. Faye, thank you for being here. And what's your question?
In the wake of the pandemic, there's now an increasing need for the collaborative work that Forward Cities does in communities to help entrepreneurs pivot, reopen, or launch new ventures. So how can we get policymakers and philanthropy to substantially invest in entrepreneurial ecosystem building?
Thank you for that. And Philip, we're going to toss that one over to you, please.
Thank you. And I think, the pandemic and the racial inequality over the last few months, has given us an opening. And I think that, it's really a time to push now on rebuilding better and reconstructing broken systems. So investing in your own business and your own community is a pathway for more equitable systems of entrepreneurship. And so we've spoken to thousands of entrepreneurs around the country and developed what we call America's New Business Plan. And it has 21 policy solutions that can help you right now. And so as entrepreneurs and those that support entrepreneurs, we need to push lawmakers to make the changes so that they won't do it on their own. You can learn about the national coalition that we've put together at startusupnow.org. But it's that advocacy at the local, federal, and state level to push and encourage policymakers and tell those stories, tell those personal stories. And once they hear those personal stories, I believe that move into more advocacy for you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you both. Next, we have Anil Verma in Washington with Break Creek Technologies, which provides IT solutions and digital transformation techniques for small and medium businesses. He has a question for Melissa. Anil, thanks for being here. And what is your question?
Yeah, so I unfortunately or fortunately started my business right when the COVID-19 pandemic started. And, I was focused on small and medium business myself, trying to offer the B2B solution. So now what I've been struggling with is really getting those leads and turning those sales, because the traditional method of selling software into small and medium business, which was face-to-face, doesn't exist anymore. And I'm just looking for ideas or solutions or suggestions of what do we do in this situation now, and how do we generate those leads that were there face-to-face at one point.
Yeah, so first of all, you're not alone. We do know historically that many folks like the Airbnbs of the world have started businesses at probably the non-ideal time. So congratulations for joining us on the entrepreneurial side regardless. I say a couple of things. I think one is social media. I think that social media, particularly now that we're not traveling, I know many corporations, particularly folks in recruiting who are looking for partners and channel partners, are using social media. The second thing is think about industry and trade newsletters. Can you buy something there, or can somebody do a story on you? Because content is king or queen. The other piece is thinking about channel partners. Can you partner with somebody? Think about and look at, do you know somebody who's already selling to that company? Can you partner with them and be an upsell or an additive service, or do the servicing or some other component, so that you're kind of tagging along or riding along some pre-existing relationships? And then I will say, I think people have adjusted to the fact that this is where we're going to be for a minute. So a lot of the business expos, a lot of the traditional government B2B programs are still happening online. They're probably very different, but they're having virtual meeting rooms and breakout rooms. So I would think about that from significant trade organizations and membership organizations, but also ask some of the companies you're trying to get into, just email somebody, reach out and say, hey, how are you really taking on new contracting opportunities? Because they may not be public, but I guarantee you they're still looking for their needs to be met.
Awesome. Okay. And I think Brad has some thoughts on this one too. Brad, take it away.
Yeah, when the COVID crisis really started visibly in the US in March, there was a fear that B2B activity would cease because people need to be face-to-face to do any kind of business transaction. 6 months later, we know that's not necessary, that there's an enormous amount of online activity. And I'd really emphasize two things that are shining right now in B2B sales activity. The first is anything that is product-led selling. So instead of trying to sell using traditional marketing techniques, especially digital, really leveraging your product and trying to get your users of your product to amplify the use of your product. Many of us have experienced the phenomena of Zoom, and they're a master at this and are probably one of the most effective companies at product-led selling and sort of that whole construct. The other is not to forget word of mouth in the B2B world. And online, word of mouth and amplifying word of mouth, whether it's through content or whether it's through some sort of referral loop in your business, can also be incredibly powerful.
Great point. Thank you for that. We are going to head over to New Jersey. Jill Justin is there. She began the Jill Justin Dance Alliance in 2007, and she has a question for Bobby. Jill, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Many small business owners like me are struggling to get our businesses back to where they were before the pandemic. But this may also be an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves and our companies. As someone who sold your company and started a new business, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who are considering making a change right now?
Well, I think if anything, this is an opportunity for people that have small businesses to pause, look at everything and say, where am I now? What was working? What wasn't working? You know, my spending, how do I stop the spending? How do I keep communicating with my community? And what are their needs now? Look for the white space. And honestly, you just have to sometimes push back and assess and say, how could we do things differently now? When the pandemic hit, our Evolution 18 products were in retail. Well, no one was going into store. We were certainly not having any kind of sales at the moment. Plus, no one knew what they should be talking about. But then things change, and then you realize what the need was, that people that were home wanted to take better care of themselves. So we started doing Instagram Lives and talking to people about how to feel better, and we really beefed up our direct to consumers. And then the stores opened, things got better. So you have, you know, a product that is a dance. So how can you reach your community? What could you be doing for them while they're at home? I've been doing a lot of Zoom workouts with my trainers, and I'm happy to pay her. I'm happy to support her. Go to your community and offer something that they could do while they're home, and just be ready when things change, that you're ready to take the next step.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. I think, Philip, you have some thoughts here too. I know Kaufman Foundation works a lot on reinvention. So do you want to jump in and share a little advice?
Yeah, thank you. Following up on Bobby's great suggestions there, you know, seeking out who's done it before, right? And Bobby mentioned that even earlier. But you know, most communities have support organizations that help small businesses and entrepreneurs. So one thing, see if your community has 1 million cups. It's a Kaufman program. It's a weekly free meetup for entrepreneurs, or you can check it out online as well. And there's people that are asking the same questions you are, and you're able to learn from and make connections that way as well. Or over in 170 locations across the United States, if you can access it online as well. So again, back to community, make sure you have you're tapping into a supportive community around you.
Great. Thank you for that. And thank you for the question, Jill. Good luck. Next up, we have Stéphanie Bermúdez joining us from Arizona. She is the founder and CEO of Startup Unidos, which cultivates collaboration, innovation, and entrepreneurship in border communities throughout the Arizona-Sonora region. And she has a question for Melissa about racial disparities. Stéphanie, thanks for being here, and please go ahead.
Hi, grateful to be here with you all. Thank you all for joining us here today. My question is, Black and Latinx and other people of color have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic because of common social and economic factors that were already in place that only increased our risk for COVID-19. So these challenges, we know that they can no longer go shrugged off or go realistically uncharted. So my question to you is, how are you fighting through the conflict and the discomfort of any racial disparity that may remain prevalent in your business and also that of your key stakeholders? Thank you.
No, thank you for the question. And I think that there is so much going on that is only exacerbated because of COVID-19. One, I think that, for us in particular, this was something that was ingrained around really creating safe space. The organization is really focused on helping communities of color at the onset. So part of it was in our DNA. So we've been very fortunate, and that has allowed us to have hard conversations. We create space. We honor people's time to take off. We're willing to have the hard conversations. We create opportunities for people to also coalesce in smaller groups and have those hard conversations. And we are actually considering and bringing in professional expertise. We know it's a cost, but it's a cost that clearly will make things a whole lot better. I think for businesses, depending on your size and number of employees, I think the first thing is just really doing an honest reflection and making sure that people feel safe. There is a lot going on. The stress that people are feeling emotionally and physically is really important no matter who you are, just to be able to create space, which means there may be more days off, there may be less Zoom calls, and you've got to really support that. The second thing is thinking about resources. The opportunity that has been created in this pandemic is the number of free resources, and I would say the safety in getting mental health support and the safety in saying, I called a counselor, I needed somebody to talk to, and to really reach out to free resources, whoever your HR company is, and figure out how can you deploy those to your people. And then I think really figuring out what's the right time and place within the organization. And if you don't think you can do it well, then please don't attempt this on your own and get a consultant who can come in and help you. And the final thing I will say, which sometimes I think is obvious, but as fellow people of color, don't look to us to answer your problems and answer all the questions. And be sure to engage and really do a deep introspection of what your role is in the structural barriers and systemic racism that we have. People of color, we already have enough to do. And so the self-education really needs to happen within a community that you're comfortable with and one that is not expecting us to have all the answers.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful response. Thank you.
And Kate, and I'd like to chime in on this question
Please.
as well. Being a female, women of color business, you have to also be recognizing kind of the strength in who you are. So one thing about populations that have been overserved, and particularly business owners, is that there is a type of resilience that you balance with, along with not being the weight, as Melissa was saying, of taking on everything. So where am I going with this is celebrate what you have done to date, even in the midst of all of the challenges that we face as women of color business owners, to know who your tribe are, who's your community that can help absorb, even as business owners, when you don't have the strength or think that you can continue on, because it's a fight that you have individually, and you're doing this on behalf of the people that you're serving as clients and your employees as well too. The third aspect of this is, having these public conversations also allows people to feel like they're not alone. So know that you are not alone, that we have history of getting through tough times and through extensive network and these conversations that continue to grow. That's how you stay the course and be encouraged.
Thank you, Lizetta, for the empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you, Lizetta and Melissa, for your answers. And Stephanie, thank you. Good luck to you. We are going to move on to Ben McDougal. He's a serial entrepreneur based in Iowa who works with the Kauffman Foundation's 1 Million Cups program that Philip had mentioned earlier to engage and inspire entrepreneurs around the country. And Brad, he's got a question for you today. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. As an entrepreneur, I've enjoyed building companies like Flightbright, Jet Set Studio, and Open. But throughout that process, I've found the unmatched energy of accelerating others. And so my question today, through programs that are driven by the community, like 1 Million Cups as a wonderful example, how can accelerating fellow founders within your own community, both in person, but also wider and in an online environment, play an important role within your entrepreneurial experience?
And thanks for the question. As I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurship is a bottoms-up network phenomena, and building and accelerating companies in either local communities or across broader geographies is a phenomena where entrepreneurs can really help other entrepreneurs. We've learned this enormously at Techstars through all of the accelerator programs we've done there. I think 1 Million Cups is another great example of a program where entrepreneurs help other entrepreneurs grow and develop. And I would just encourage a philosophy that I have, which I call give first, which is that as an entrepreneur, if you want to develop your business, one of the things to focus on is helping other entrepreneurs in your ecosystem or in your startup community. Be willing to put some energy into your startup community without necessarily knowing what you're going to get back. And this is especially true if you have resources. It's not altruism. You'll get something back. You just don't know when, from whom, and what consideration over what period of time, and in what magnitude. And so this dynamic of having this approach of saying, all right, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm trying to grow my business. There's lots of opportunities for me. But as part of that, I'm going to engage by helping other entrepreneurs. As you do more and more of that, the benefits of that, not 100% of your time, 5% of your time, 10% of your time, the benefits are enormous, not just in terms of networking, but in terms of learning and growth and development of you personally and your company.
Thank you, Brad, and cheers to the startup community way. What a treat.
Thanks.
Ben, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you, Brad. Next up, we have Becky Schueller, who's a rural business owner in Minnesota with her own consulting and training firm. Lizetta, she's got a question for you today about small business loans. We all know that's really weighing on the minds of many business owners that are watching today from around the country. So, Becky, take it away.
Thanks so much. I want to say good afternoon to everyone, and also thanks for taking my question. And just before I ask it, I want to extend my deepest sympathies to those of you in the audience and on the panel who have lost a loved one or family member to COVID-19. So my question is there an option for the federal government to redirect the economic injury disaster loan funds to the PPP loan program? Because I think the PPP loan program has actually worked fairly well for a number of small business owners. And my understanding is that the PPP loans are forgivable while the EIDL loans are not. And PPP loans are also administered through local banks, which makes them very accessible for those small businesses that have a banking relationship.
And your question lends to, the federal government and what policies will be decided. And we're right here at an election, less than 6 weeks away. I commend you for doing your due diligence of finding out very extensively what the current rules are for the EIDL and the PPP loan. Obviously, people want more money that is forgiven, grants, instead of just loans in terms of paying them back. Where you have to position yourself, because legislation is constantly changing, executive orders are constantly changing, is to be prepared to pay the EIDL loan back in case that stands the way that it is. And we're seeing every few weeks or so, there's some changing. Hopefully there'll be more relief because, as we know, grants is much better than loans. And also keep thinking about local opportunities, not just federal and state, that can help you on the grant side that may also provide some relief if you cannot be in a position to pay a loan back. If I had more influence, I would say make them grants. Grants are better than loans. The best thing is to position yourself for the unknown. And right now that means being able to service that loan until we hear otherwise.
Thank you.
Great, Lizetta, thank you. And Philip, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I'll just add in a little bit here, and shout out to rural Minnesota, Becky, by the way. Although PPP was administered through banks, the key phrase in your question was, is that have a banking relationship? And so, our research showed that 83% of entrepreneurs don't access traditional bank loan or venture capital. So let's look at the disconnect here, right? So we had the PPP program, the primary distribution was through banks, but the data shows that many entrepreneurs, small business owners don't have relationships with banks. So look at that disconnect and the disconnect it created. So we have to do better than that. The same businesses that I talked about in that 83% are overwhelmingly minority, overwhelmingly women owned, and they're left out cold. Majority of them left out, or too many of them left out in the first round of PPP. So on the broader point, we need open up capital access, beyond what we're currently doing. And our work in our capital access lab is a model and a test at looking at systems change as it relates to capital access. But businesses that could and should survive won't be able to if they don't have that network of opportunity. So the disconnects have to be erased, gaps have to be closed, and access has to be gained.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, great. Philip and Lizetta, thank you for that. We're going to head back to Kansas City, I believe now, where Davin Gordon is with Community Development Financial Institution AltCap, and his question is also for Lizetta. Thanks for being here, and what is your question?
Yes, thank you for having me. So my question goes back to a lot of the conversations around diversity and inclusion. How can we continue to recreate equitable ecosystem building and entrepreneurship when we lack diversity at the top? And then a second part of that question is, how do we get more fund managers of color to decide where and how to invest? Thank you.
So we appreciate that question because it ties very nicely to what Philip just said. There's no doubt that there is a shortage of decision makers who have access to distribute capital. Right now is in the hands of a population that hasn't really distributed equally to underserved and overlooked populations within the minority community. But on the other side, there are intentional programs, intentional organizations that you have to do the due diligence about who understands where to place money in ways that it's going to grow. Investing in companies like yours that have the extreme potential to make it happen. With that being said, really think about, as we think the ecosystem, what defines that? Your banking, your untraditional sources with private capital, figuring out ways to position yourself such that when these opportunities come, you have your ducks lined in a row, your financials look tight, your business plan is tight. So if there's any reason that it's no, it's not because of you and not because of your business model, not because of your leadership. And what you're also demonstrating too within your business is a culture that you hope these aligned financial institutions will have as well too. So if you as a business owner are modeling what you anticipate to have for those who are funders, then that puts the onus on them to say, why are they really turning you down? It's not me. I've given you everything that you wanted. I've given you the numbers. I've given you the leadership. I've given you the business model. And then you have that confidence to find those who really align with you as the leader, the one who really is producing the business.
Okay, can I weigh in too?
Please.
So I just want to say two quick things. One, on the ecosystem, ask or demand it. I literally got a call 4 weeks ago to say, look, we are in the midst of running an accelerator program, and the African-American women in the program said, there's no people of color. Would you come talk to me? And I did. And I have ended up doing 3 sessions and a ton of one-on-one conversations. So I can't say that everybody's going to say yes, but they asked and they received. And the program then publicly made a commitment to say, we just didn't even notice. But it made a huge difference. So I'd say people are really open. This is a time where receptivity, maybe not understanding, but receptivity is there. And then I would say in terms of the Black VCs, Philip knows this group, but I have the privilege to be part of Builders and Benefactors, as well as a member of Black VC. So just email me. We track as Black VCs. We know who's out there, but you got to let us know who's out there. A lot of our decisions are not ours, depending on who our limited partners are and the type of money we have. Some funds are explicitly for entrepreneurs of color. Others are much more diverse, depending on the capital stack they've raised. But if you get in touch with one of us, I hate to say it, because that means that we're pretty small, but we all know each other. So I'm happy to have you email me if you're interested, or somebody else, and pass it on or take a look at it and keep it moving. But it is a very robust ecosystem that I will say, even before George Floyd, but particularly now, have come together to really double up on our commitment to making sure that we get visibility to entrepreneurs who've typically been marginalized.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for jumping in. And Philip, I know you had some thoughts on this, so I'm going to bring you in as well.
Just real quick. Thanks so much. Here's what I say. You can have a diverse room of people. You can have an inclusive room of people. It does not mean the room is equitable. So when ecosystems, investors, corporations, whatever, you have to understand everyone needs an equal seat at the front table so that everyone is heard and understood. That is one of the core fundamentals of building equitable ecosystems. And so, and so we see in our capital decisions, and I mentioned the 83% of entrepreneurs don't receive VC or traditional loan. Through all of the systems, it's look at all those different systems we're talking about throughout the conversation, where diversity, equity, inclusion is at the root, and race, equity, diversity, and inclusion is at the root of things. So one quick thing just on lenders, we need traditional lenders and investors to really take a hard look at their risk profiles. I mentioned that earlier, and just unpack the biases. That's where that longer term change comes from. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all for thoughtful answers on that one. Appreciate it. We are going to move to Marc Alessi, the Executive Director of the Business Incubator Association of New York State, and he's got a question for Brad. Marc, thanks for being here, and go ahead.
Thank you. So the Incubator Association is made up of 105 incubators and accelerators in New York State, and our membership has reported back a 30% increase in incubator applications, many of which are from non-traditional entrepreneurs thrust into entrepreneurship out of necessity, or legacy businesses in the community who are struggling. What do you think we should focus on as incubator managers to best help this non-traditional applicant?
Marc, thanks for the question. I'd say three specific things. One is make sure you understand clearly what the non-traditional applicant needs, and that whether or not the incubator can support that. I think one of the challenges for a lot of businesses right now is that people are trying to find any source of help. And one of the mismatches is a lot of times you feel like I should try to help, but I don't actually know what to do to help. Second, which is linked to that, is when you start seeing patterns of things people need, decide whether or not the incubator can be productive in helping with those patterns. Or if not, try to find other resources in the startup community or in the entrepreneurial ecosystem that can help those businesses. So don't necessarily feel like the default should be, oh, well, they've come to us, therefore we must do something. Make sure you're part of a broader network, your network of incubators, but make sure that in all of those incubators, other resources that you can bring to bear. And in a lot of ways, this leads to the third point that I'd make, which is legacy businesses that are in distress right now, especially post-COVID, in addition to financial distress, many of those businesses have lots of other elements of distress, whether those are specific around their business characteristics or just the emotional and mental health of the founders and the employees, given the stress that everybody's going through, both in business and personal lives. And so I think one of the things that an association of business incubators or any other sort of association can do is, in addition to focusing on the business characteristics, also focus on the human and mental health characteristics of these business leaders, and try to make sure that you're supporting them and or connecting them up with resources that are available in their community.
Thank you.
Great, Brad and Marc, thank you both for that. And we do have time for one last question. This comes from Philip Reardon with Bantam in Massachusetts. And Lizetta, this last question is for you. Philip, thanks for being here, and please go ahead.
Great, thank you. With the election 34 days away, and it's shaping up to be quite a doozy, but not only for the presidential, but also for the control of the Senate, how can I best prepare my business for both tax and regulatory changes, given the fact that I don't have a crystal ball?
Great question. One of the things that we always say about businesses is just be so clear about how you operate and where your risks are. For businesses, we know that taxes have a way of they're necessary, first of all.
Unfortunately.
And then how do you pivot around that line item that is one that will not go away? So the question is, will it increase or will it decrease? And based on that particular line item, how can you pivot to be able to take advantage of the tax savings or adjust that you're end up paying more taxes, right? That's kind of budgeting, financial planning 101. The other aspect of this is access to capital and how much is it going to cost. Right now, interest rates are extremely low. So did you position yourself as a firm, have the balance sheet strength to be able to get ahead of any changes in possible interest rates? You know, will they go up? When will they go up? We don't know. So are you getting the cash flow that you need, the lines of credit that you need to weather changes in cash flows, such that, bottom line, if expenses go up and you see a decrease in revenue for whatever the case may be, that you have the right reserves, that you can pivot based on that huge unknown. Where will taxes be? Where will interest rates be? And then the other piece of this is what's in your control. Is your business model strong enough to weather the changes in consumer demand?
Great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lizetta, for that. And we do have to leave it here. We want to thank all of the small business owners, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs who joined us for this amazing event today. Very cool and interactive, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much to our amazing panel, Melissa, Lizetta, Philip, Bobby, Brad. We so appreciate your time, your thoughts, your insights here in this all-important time for entrepreneurship. And we also thank the Kauffman Foundation for partnering with us on this event. Philip, any closing thoughts from you?
That's just entrepreneurs, believe in yourselves. You're amazing.
Great last advice. Just a quick note too, we also want to thank Dodd Technologies for helping us make this possible today. And if you want to watch more clips from today's event or take an hour and just watch it again, I think it was pretty good. Might be worth watching, from the top on down again and learn more about the topics we discussed. Please visit cnbc.com/investinYou. Good luck, stay positive, and thank you all so much for your time.